Okay, we are on Daf Chaf Gimal Amud Aleph, two dots around three, two-thirds down. Allah Harara Mishalim, right? In the case of the cookie and the coal, he pays full damages for the cookie and half damages for the hay that got burnt. Man Hayav, who's Hayav to pay for it? Gemara says, Bala Caleb, the owner of the dog. Bila Hayav Nani Bala Gahilet. 1 second, why is the dog owner Hayav for everything? Maybe the owner of the coal should be Hayav as well because the dog was able to get it, so he wasn't careful. Where it says it's referring to a case where he guarded the coal. Where it says if he guarded the coal, then how did the dog get it? Where it says the dog burrowed under the hole, under the fence. He managed to dig underneath and squeeze through. This means, just a FYI, if the dog wants to get somewhere, regular earthen doors or fences, the dog will burrow underneath to get through. What did the dog eat the cookie? If it meant to ate it by the random someone else's haystack. It had to be eating something in someone else's property. But it's not, because he's not eating in the owner of the cookie's property. No, it's referring to the case where he ate it in the owner of the biscuit of the cookie, but he also, that's the same owner of the haystack. Now, 1 second. Seemingly, according to the Mishnah, the mouth of a cow, right? The actual cow, while he's committing the damage of Shen, his mouth, it must be treated as the damagee's yard, right? So even though the cow's belongs to me, for example, but if it's in Reuben's property, that mouth belongs to the damagee's yard, because because if it's considered my yard, right? My cow's mouth is my yard. I could tell the guy, what's your item doing in my owner in the mouth of my dog? Meaning, if the mouth of your animal will be considered belonging to the owner, then you'll never be chayav on shen, because the shen has to be in the damagee's property. And over here, the guy could say, "What is your stuff doing in my animal's property, in his mouth?" Gemara says the ibailahu, because they asked the question. They asked the mouth of a cow who did damage. Is that considered damagee's property or the damager's property? The Gemara says if it's considered the damager's property, like we just said, that would be the case where shen will be chayav for deoraita, right? We said shen is always in the damagee's property. So if the actual action of shen is happening in damager's property because the cow's mouth belongs to the damager, it wouldn't be chayav according to the Torah. Right? Shen, I can mention in the first daf, doesn't necessarily have to mean eating. It could be any type of damage that the animal does to make itself feel good, including rubbing itself against the wall, or rolling on fruits for its pleasure. Right? I like how squishing on tomatoes, a tomato patch, is rolling back and forth. If it has to the tooth destroys to completion, which sounds like eating or consuming something, but over here destroying a wall is not destruction completely. So how would that make sense? Remember, says Ravina Amar Deshaf Talmi. It's referring to rubbing out an image from the wall, which is complete destruction of the item, right? If you have a beautiful molding, for example, and it rubs it out, that's considered complete destruction without necessarily consuming it, which fits with the Mishnah and the Pasuk. Ravashia gives another example, or regarding the case of the fruits, where it presses the fruits, right? It's rubbing on the fruits and the tomatoes, and it's rubbing it into the mud. That's also complete destruction without eating. Tashma. She saw both a kelev, she saw both an achash patur. Masechet Sanhedrin, very, very fun masechet, and especially this case. If I convince or I incite the dog or the snake to attack someone else, I'm patur. Well, we'll see. Man patur, who's patur? It seemingly says that the guy who incited the animal to do it is patur, but the owner of the dog or snake will be chayav. But if he's saying that the animal's mouth is considered the damager's property, he could tell him, what's your hand doing in my animal's mouth? Therefore, the Gemara says, when it says patur, even the inciter is patur. right? Not just the owner, but even the insider, even the guy who forced it. Another answer. The afke leneveh v'sarteh. It's referring to where the dog bit him, but it stuck out its fangs. When it attacked him, it stuck out its fangs to bite, right? So, which means that it wasn't inside the animal's mouth; it was external, right? It stuck out its teeth to do it. Tashma, which I bring another proof. If I took the fangs of the snake, right? I took the animal's head and I slammed it into someone. Rabbi Yehuda and I killed him. Rabbi Yehuda Chayav v'Chamim Pratim. Rabbi Yehuda says Chayav, death penalty, and Chamim say Patur. Amar Rav Achabar Yaakov. When you think to say L'Devrei Rabbi Yehuda Eres Nahash Ben Shinav Hu Omer. According to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, the venom of the snake is within its fangs, right? Therefore, he's Chayav because when he pushed it into the guy, he's putting the venom straight into the guy's body. Lefikach Makish B'Sayaf v'Nahash Patur. Therefore, you are chayav for killing the person, but the snake is patur because he didn't do anything wrong. The Devrei Chachamim eres nahash me'atzum leki. But according to Chachamim, the snake injects the venom on its own. Right, so you put the guy's fangs into the thing's not death until the snake physically injects it himself. Lefikach nahash peskila umakish patur. Therefore, in the case of that, according to Chachamim, the snake has to die because it chose to kill, but not the person. Okay, but now, according to what we just said, according to the opinion of whole, that the mouth of the animal is considered belonging to the damager, and why is a snake hayat? What's your hand doing? You can tell him, what's your hand doing in your snake's mouth? So in regarding to an animal that killed, you can't say, oh, it's not my fault, you put your hand there. Therefore, you could kill the animal. But damage is a different case. I mean, not to how do you know that you could differentiate between the animal, the killing animal and stuff? If someone trespasses in someone else's property without permission, and the ox of that owner killed him, right? He was trespassing, and the ox saw him, panicked, and killed him. The ox is put to death for committing murder, but the master is not chayav anything at all, not even to pay kofir. Why is he patur? Because he could say, what are you doing with my property? Not my fault that my animal killed you. Nowadays, who knows? They'd probably execute the guy. If that's the case, then how come why does the ox die? He should also be saying it's not his fault. Where answers, but regarding a killer animal, if it killed once, whether or not it was self-defense or a panic, we can't have it alive anymore. There were these goats owned by the Tarabu family that would damage Rav Yosef's property. Amar Abaye, Abaye, go tell the owners they should watch them in their own property. Amar Azil said, what should I go? What would I do? Because I tell him what you just told me to tell him, they'll say, oh, build your own fence. Why do I have to guard my goat? Build your fence to guard your yard. If that's the case, that I would have to fence my own stuff to protect it, then what would be the case of Shen, or to be Chayav, right? If he couldn't tell him, guard your goat, and the guy could have responded to me instead that I should guard my produce, then what would be a case of Chayav and Shen? If everybody could tell him, you should have guarded your own stuff more than I should have guarded my goats. Where it says, Kishe Hatra, you'd be Chayav if it burrowed underneath the fence. Another answer, did not feel good Belala. If the fence fell down unrelated or by itself. And that would be a case where I did my hishtadlut, I did my own job by protecting it, but it fell down. That would be a sachev. Machiz Yosef Rabbi used to say, those traveling from Eretz Israel to Bavel or vice versa, if you see the goats of the meat market causing damage, right, the animals that were hanging around, right, we were hanging around waiting for shechita. You should warn them 2 or 3 times about their goats that they shouldn't damage anymore. It listens and listens. If he doesn't listen to him, doesn't listen to the warning, you could tell him, wait by the butcher and collect your money there. You could force him to slaughter the animal and sell the meat to pay for the damages. What's considered time? What's considered a muad? Muad, like we mentioned before, it did it 3 separate days. Seemingly, it makes a difference, right? We said 3 times. We said previously 3 times, it does 3 times. Over here it says days. Does that mean, we'll see what that means. And it could go back to a tam if it stopped doing it for 3 days. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Meir says, Mu'ad shehedu bo shlosh yamim. Mu'ad is if it did it 3 times, regardless of days. And a tam goes back, and it can go back to a tam if it's being teased by children and it doesn't do anything. My time Rabbi, what's the reason Rabbi that 3 days are needed? Because he learns from the pasuk. The pasuk says, "V'imshor nagahu mitemo shilshom v'hu'ad." Right? Amar Abraham, timol chad. The fact that it said the word mitimol, there's 2 things to learn from. The word timol teaches you one day. Mitimol teaches you another day. Shilshom plata. Shilshom means the 3rd day. And therefore, if it doesn't listen, that make the 4th one is the first full mu'ad damage. Rava says no. Timol mitimol. The word timol / mitimol is the same thing. And that's for its 1. So sham means twice. He doesn't watch it. Ha'idna chayav. 3rd time you're chayav. Right. So Rava would hold that you're chayav on the 3rd time. Rabbi holds the 4th time. Remember, that's the reason Meir that he holds 3 times, even on 1 day is chayav. Doesn't make a difference in the days. The man is made of times. The Tanya, Amar Rabbi Meir says, if the ox spread out the 3 gorings over 3 days, he's chayav. If he did it over 3 days, chayav. If he did all 3 in 1 day, for sure it should be a chayav. Amruleh, they told him that's not a good kava chomer. Right? A kava chomer usually works. If I can lift 100 pounds, I can lift 50 pounds. Right? So he's saying if the animal did it over 3 days, chayav. So if he did it over 1 day, it should be a chayav for sure. Where it says that's not a good proof. Why? Because Amruleh is zava to chayav. The case of a zava is a proof that that's not a good kava chomer. Right? How? If it's spread out 3 times of tum'ah, if it spread out the gorings over, if she saw her tum'ah, the zava, right? Mentioned it's a discharge. So if she saw it over 3 days, she's tameh. But if it was 3 times over 1 day, she's not tameh. So we see over there that even though you could be tameh over 3 days, it doesn't make a difference if it's 3 times in the same day, right? So logically, you might say that it's different. If it happened on the same day, maybe the animal was having a bad day, or it was being teased, or it was still upset. But 3 separate days is different. It should be muad, right? That would be the logical reason. Besides for this broken kava chomer, the Gemara says it's not a disproof. Why? Amar len harehu omer v'zot tiyetum ato bezovo. Tala katuv etazav beriot v'etazav yamim. You know, that's not a good question against the kava chomer, because the reason why the kava chomer didn't work is the reason why zava doesn't work is because the pasuk specifically said this shall be tameh. And therefore, this means that it has to be on the amount of times and not about amount of the zav is depending on times, meaning a male zav, depends on how many times, even if it's the same day. And the word zot teaches you that the zava, the female, is dependent on days, right? So not good for kava chomer. The Gemara says, who says that the word zot is coming to exclude the actual discharges by the female? Maybe it's referring to exclude that it's excluding the amount of days by the male, right? Who says that it's discharges by the female and the days by the male? Maybe it's vice versa, or who knows what. When it says Amar Kra, the pasuk says right? It says both of them in the same pasuk. You make a hekesh, you compare the male to female zav. Just like a female becomes tameh through 3 separate days, so to zachar also 3 consecutive days. The Gemara says, that's the case, they're comparable, then do a vice versa comparison. That what mazachar b'riot, just like a zachar becomes tameh through discharges even on the same day. So to a female should also become 3 discharges on the same day, should make her tameh. The Gemara says, we say no, but the word vizot told you that it doesn't work by nekeva. Now we're back to the same spot. Umaraita. How do you know that's what the word is doing? Say, vizot means that it's, the girl has to be 3 separate days. Who says? Maybe vizot means the opposite, that it could be even 3 in 1 day. Umar says, because the pasuk, when it's talking about the amount of time it discharges, it's coming to exclude the discharges by the female. Right? It wouldn't be talking about discharges. It wouldn't come to exclude days. We'll discuss it wouldn't exclude days. It wouldn't teach you that it could be on the same day while talking about discharges, right? So therefore, what the context of the pasuk teaches you that it has to be that it's excluding the days by the female by it's excluding the discharges by a female to teach you that if it's over 3 days, you're considered a zava, and if not, you're not, and therefore we knocked out the original answer, the initial Kal Vachomer question from before.